theyeshiva.net.
A few verses in the Parsha of Behaaloscha. In the source sheet, it's on your first source, Behaaloscha Perik Yud Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Just a little context to be able to make the story clearer. The Jewish people arrived to the Sinai desert, Midbar Sinai, on the first day of Sivan. 7 weeks, almost 7 weeks, 6 weeks after they departed from Egypt in the year 2448 since creation, according to our tradition. They remain in that location for almost a year. That year is an action-filled year. They receive the Torah, they create a golden calf, they construct a Mishkan, a sanctuary. The next year, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, a little before the first anniversary of the Exodus of Egypt, they erect a Mishkan. The next month, on the 20th of Iyar, Chaf Iyar, the Torah says in Parshas Behaaloscha, 1 year and 1 month after they left Egypt, they finally move on to a new location. So they remain stationed in the same region, in the same location, for almost a year. From Rosh Chodesh Sivan all the way till the next year, the 20th of Iyar. In other words, 1 year minus 10 days. And then at the 20th of Iyar, they move on. This is the description where Parshas Behaaloscha takes us, this departure on the 20th of Iyar where they move on, and the subsequent events which are no less dramatic than the previous events. So the Pasuk says, Vayisu mehar Adonai derech shloishes yamim, they travel, they journey from the mountain of God in a way, a path of 3 days, a voyage of 3 days. And the ark, the Aron, is traveling before them, also a path of 3 days, a passage of 3 days in order to scout out a place of rest. As they're traveling from the camp, the cloud of the Lord is on top of them during the day. Here in the Torah there is a famous nun hafucha, a inverted nun, as you could see, to demonstrate a dramatic break. As the Aron, the ark, travels, Moshe makes a special declaration, rise up Hashem, let the enemies be scattered and let your foes fled from your presence. When the ark would rest, Moshe again would say, return Hashem to the myriads, thousands of Israel. Another nun that is inverted, a nun hafuch, an opposite nun, and a new chapter, Perik Yud Aleph, the Jewish people were complaining. It was bad in the ears of Hashem. Hashem heard and he was upset, and a fire of God burnt up in them, and it consumed the edge of the camp. Zog the Gemara in Mesechtes Shabbos Daf Kuf Tes Vav Amud Beis, and it continues Kuf Tes Zayin Amud Aleph. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Vayhi bin Sayarin, Vayem Moshe, Parsha Zu Asal HaKadosh Baruch Hu Simonius, Malmaylo Lamata, Loimar Shein Zamekayma. This section in Chumash, Hashem, the Rebbeinu Shalom, made signs before it and afterwards. Like we just saw, there's the Nun, the opposite Nun before Vayhi bin Saya, and the second Nun, again an opposite Nun, a Nun Hafucha at the end, two psukim later, to teach you that this is not the proper place for it. We are not discussing here the journeys of the Jewish people. We're discussing here one particular journey. This is a general description of what used to happen every single time the ark traveled. Every single time the Jews traveled. This is not the place where they're discussing the journeys. In fact, Parshas Bamidbar is the place where we discuss the journeys. How they journeyed, who journeyed, in what order, the flags, etc. Asks the Gemara, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, Lama kos v'kan. Why is it put here? In order to interrupt one negative occurrence from a second negative occurrence. So even though this Parsha Vahi ben Soya does not belong here, and that is why there is this sign before and after to say this is really not part of the sequel, nonetheless, it serves the purpose of interrupting negativity. What is the second punishment? Beginning of chapter 11 of Numbers, the nation was complaining. Puranius Rishoina, what's the first negative occurrence? Vayisu mehar Hashem. They traveled from the mountain of Hashem. What's the problem? It wasn't just a geographical journey. They left the mountain, but rather they departed. They left, so to speak, spiritually, existentially, God. These are the two negative occurrences, and Vayihi ben Soya Ha'aron interrupts between them so that they do not follow each other consecutively. Zok Tosfos, Pirush Bekuntras. Rashi says, where does the pasuk indicate Vayisu Meyar Hashem means that there was something bad here? They left the mountain. They were at the mountain of God. That's where the mountain of Sinai was, where the Torah was given, where the divine presence rested. They left. They traveled on. So Rashi explains here in the Gemara, Sheme'az hischilu lishal basar. When this new journey began, suddenly we will find the Jews complaining that they have nothing to eat. Mi yachilenu basar, we want meat. The manna is disgusting. We have nothing normal to eat. They crave the fish, the sushi, that they used to eat in Egypt for free, and they don't stop complaining about the meat. When does this happen? On this journey. So in other words, this journey brought with it negative experiences. V'oimeri, Rabbeinu Yitzchak says, the ein nira loy markein. It does not seem to be the meaning of the Gemara because the words Vayisu Mehar Hashem would not be negative in and of themselves. And that's already a later Puranius. That's later. So the story of them asking for flesh, for meat, that is a later negative story. It doesn't have to do with this pasuk. Ela Puranius Rishoina, the first negative experience is Kedama b'Medrash Yilamdeinu. The Medrash says, Vayisu shenasu mehar Sinai derech shloishes yam. The pasuk says they journeyed from the mountain of Hashem a path of 3 days. It should have said Vayisu mehar Hashem shloishes yamim. They traveled for 3 days until they rest. It doesn't say they traveled for 3 days. They traveled a derech of shloishes yamim, meaning the traveling time was less than 3 days, but they managed to cover a span of land, a space of 3 days. Ketinoik hayoytze mebeis hasefer, like a child leaving school. Shebereach loy v'hoylech loy. You remember? He doesn't just stand up, dismissed, stands up and walks out. It's not what a child does. He runs. Kacha yuborche mehar Sinai derech shloishes yam. They ran from Har Sinai. They ran like a child from school. And they ran so fast that they could cover in 1 day what takes 3 days to cover. A derech shloishes yamim, a path, a passageway that acquires 3 days, they covered in 1 day. That's why it doesn't say they traveled for 3 days. They traveled in 1 day, a derech of shloishes yamim. Lefi shalamdu harbe Torah b'Sinai. They learned so much Torah in Sinai, they were dismissed, they ran. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, Nismach Puranos l'Puranos lav. To bring together one negative experience with another negative experience. The Jews running from Har Sinai like a child running from school. And the Jews complaining we don't want to bring them together. Ela nifsek parshas Vahi ben Sayar. So we'll interrupt it with the Parsha of Vahi ben Sayah, which is out of context, but it serves as a good interruption. This is Tosfos' quote from the Medrash. This Medrash is corroborated by a teaching in Yerushalmi. Talmud Yerushalmi, Maseches Tainis, Perek Dalet Halacha Hey. Vayisu mehar Hashem derech shloishes yamim. They traveled from God's mountain in a derech, a way of 3 days. Reb Scharia chasnei de Reb Levi. Reb Scharia, the son-in-law of Reb Levi, said, Le'ilein tilaya. They are compared to little goats, to little sheep. The mispanye min sifra, who are evacuated, who leave the book in the school, v'nafkin loin bekvari, and they go home to their villages. Vayisu mehar Hashem, again, it's like the little goats, the little shephalach, the little sheep, the little children who are closing the books in the Beis HaSefer, in the school, and going home. Yalkut Shemoini Behaaloscha Remes Tovshin Chavtas, a medrash again. K'sha'amar Moshe Lisa Misham Masa Yom Echad, when Moshe told them to travel 1 day journey, Holchu Ma'alach Gimel Yomim V'Layla Echad. They traveled in 1 day the journey that it usually would take 3 days and a night. Ketinak sheyotzim beis hasefer v'rotz. Again, like a child who leaves the school and runs. That's what Chazal teach us. At first glance, it seems like a cute and charming parable. Children, right? You thought only today children hate school. Children don't like school. School is over, they run. They run, they're not interested. So the Chazal are simply using this as a parable, that the Jews were given an opportunity to run, they're running. But of course, when the sages used parables, the parables were extremely meticulous and precise. And one would really have to understand the connection. I mean, when school is over, you don't have to learn anymore, you're gone. When Moshe Rabbeinu told them we're leaving Har Sinai, what did they think? God is gone, the Torah is gone, the mitzvahs are gone, Judaism is obsolete. We're journeying on to another location. It's not like whatever happened at Har Sinai is obsolete. The covenant is gone. It's like here we were Jewish, and now we're crossing the Atlantic Ocean. And like many Jews, as they crossed the Atlantic Ocean, they took the tefillin and they threw it into the ocean. They came to Ellis Island, and suddenly you had a new Jew, a new person. Did they really think so? They're not running. What are they running away from? Who are they running away from? Which school are they running away from? Moshe is, all the teachers are there. Moshe is there. Aaron is there. The Aron is there. The Mishkan is there. The cloud is there. The divine presence is there. Huh? Vayafutzu evecha. That's a different Vayafutzu. At first glance, the answer is simple. That's the point. The point is they weren't interested in learning. They weren't interested in Torah. Yes, they knew that it's coming with them. They were fed up. It was too much. They had enough. They simply didn't want it. In the words of Tosfos, Shalom du harbe Torah b'Sinai. It was a long day, or in this sense, it was a long year. It was a lot of learning, and they're like, we had enough. That's exactly the point, even if it's not exactly like the school. The question then is, what is the mashal adding? What is the metaphor adding? Chazal could have said, as they often say, they weren't interested. They rebelled against Torah. They rebelled against Moshe. They rebelled against God. Lo yratzu lilmod Torah. They ran away. They ran. What do we gain? What depth? What clarity? What nuance do we glean? Do we gain from this metaphor of a tinner kaberech mebeis hasefer? Right. Which also brings us to another question. All children hate school? There's no child in the world who doesn't run from school? It seems like somewhat of a pessimistic prediction that forever a child despises school. Sometimes you have gifted teachers. Everybody has that experience. Once in a while, no, you have a gifted teacher, a great school, yeah? Teacher who mesmerizes the students, engages the students. They want to sit. But Chazal paskin up here, Ketinek haberech bebeis hasefer. You could say they're not talking about all of them, but it's like glat. This is how it is. There is one paragraph of the Rogatchover gone on this pasuk in Chumash. The Rogatchover gone, as you know, Rabbeinu Yosef Rosen passed away Yud Aleph Adar Tov Reish Tzadik Vav, 11th of Adar 1936. He was the Rav of Dvinsk, the city of Dvinsk, Latvia, and was considered Tsar HaTorah, the Prince of Torah. His genius was something of unique caliber even in his generation, and even relative to many previous generations. He's known as the Rogatchover Gaon, and his works are known as Tzafnas Panaach. In his Tzafnas Panaach on Chumash, that was published from his writings on the side of his Chumash. One day we'll have to talk about how his writings were saved from the Germans, from the Nazis. It's a separate story. He has here one paragraph. And I'm going to read it to you inside. We'll read it together. And the objective of this class is going to be to decipher his words. The Rogatchover Gaon, it's sad that his writing skills were not the same as his oratory skills. When he would speak, Reb Shlomo Yosef Zevin, who knew him, writes, a 5-year-old child understood every word. Even though you have to understand the Ur Sameach, Reb Meir Simcha Kohen of Dvinsk, the Meshech Chachma, who served also as the Rav of Dvinsk, a contemporary. He was the Rav of the Ashkenazim, and the Rogatchover was the Rav of the Chassidim. They once said that the Rogatchover Gaon has a brilliant memory. So the Ur Sameach said he doesn't have a brilliant memory. A memory means you learned something last week and you remember it. You learned something 5 years ago, you remember it. He says for him, everything is open up constantly. He sees everything. It's not a memory. But when he would speak, everybody could understand. His writing is very, very difficult. It is so brief and so concise and so cryptic. And every other word is a reference to another place in Shas or Rambam, especially Yerushalmi or Tosfos or whatever. It's extremely difficult to decipher. Let's see what he says. Zog the Rogatchover, Tzafnas Panaach, Ketinik sheberech bebeis hasefer. Sifri means look up the Sifri. Ubi Yerushalmi Tainis Perek Daled, look up Yerushalmi Tainis Perek Daled, which we just learned together. V'toisvus Shabbos Daf Kuf Tazayin, Ein Shom Bazeh. Look in these sources where it basically says that the Jews left the mountain, and the Purani is the negative experiences that it's a Tinek Haberech Bebeis HaSefer. It's a trial. Ritzoyin Oyloimar. Don't think the meaning of Chazal is just some simple parable. They're running away from school. That they could have said in many other ways. They weren't interested. This is something that they're trying to convey a depth. And the depth could only be conveyed through a metaphor. And this is based on a principle that whenever the sages use a mashal, a parable, it's not just for entertainment purposes. Sometimes a teacher sees everybody is sleeping or texting, so he needs to tell up some mashal to get everybody excited. But as you know, the Gemara was not worried so much about that. A lot of things would have been different if they were seeking just entertainment. They're seeking to communicate truth. So whenever there's a metaphor, the metaphor is telling you something that you wouldn't understand without it. Zog the Rogatchover Ritzoyin Loimar, Shaloi Ratzu Lilmud Oisis HaTorah Pratim. They did not want to learn the letters of Torah individually. Raktevis Shleimus. They wanted whole words, not letters. How do children, Tinoikas here, are not older kids. They're babies. How do babies learn in Cheder and Beis HaSefer? Kametz Aleph, you remember? Kametz Beis Ba. Yeah? I don't know exactly how they did it at that time, in the time of the Tanoim, but they're not learning full sentences, full words and sentences and paragraphs and psukim. They're not there yet. These are tinoikas, these are little babies. They're just beginning to pronounce words. They're just beginning to learn the letters, the alphabet. They're learning Oisis HaTorah. They don't want this. Ketina kabarech bebeis hasefer. It's not just at the end of school because they're being dismissed. They don't want to learn the Oisius Pratim, Raktevas, Shleimas. They want complete words. That's what he says. Now, this needs some clarification. So he says, V'zeh hach plukta shel Beis Shammai o Beis Hillel. Of course, this is an argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Im ois achas have gedem etzias. If one letter in Torah could be defined as a mitzius, as a significant reality in the world of halacha. V'shita es harambam behilchis mezuzah b'zeh. You have to know the view of the Rambam in Hilchis Mezuzah uposak Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai, the Rambam embraced the view of Beis Shammai, even though usually halacha is like Beis Hillel. V'ayin mashakos Kiddushin Daf Lamed. You look in Kiddushin Daf Lamed, and he finishes his last words, V'zeh hageder shel tzitz, the kos of Kodesh Lashem. And this is an understanding of what happened by the tzitz, which is the plate on the golden plate on the forehead of the high priest, where it said two words, Kodesh Lashem, holy to Hashem. This is the Rogatchover for you. You see, he's saying something. The man is saying something. You're curious, what is he saying here? Avart. The Jews didn't want something. They chose Beis Hillel over Beis Shammai. The Rambam says it's like Beis Shammai. This is a Maisa with the tzitz. What is going on here? So if we would only have this paragraph from the Rogatchover, probably for most people, certainly for me, it would be impossible to understand it. Luckily, in Parshas Pekudei, by the tzitz, the Rogatchover says a whole shtickle about the tzitz. And when you put that together with this, you could perhaps understand a little bit of what he's trying to say here. So with the combination of these few pieces, we could try, Be'ezer Hashem, to reconstruct his profound words. So let's go to what he concluded with the tzitz. We'll get back to our discussion. The Kohen Gadol, the high priest, wore 8 garments. We all know the 8 garments. Of course, he had the 4 garments that every Kohen had, plus another 4. What were his 8 garments? The Kohen Gadol had the mechnasayim, he had the pants, he had the ksoinis, he had the shirt, he had the mitznefes, he had the hat, he had the avnet, he had the belt, like every Kohen. In addition to that, he had me'il, a robe, he had the ephod. The ephod was an apron. He had the choshen mishpat, which was a breastplate, and he had the tzitz, which was under the mitznefes on his forehead, made of gold. Says the pasuk in Parshas Tetzaveh, the next source. Hashem is speaking to Moshe. V'asisa tzitz zahav tor. You should make a tzitz. What is a tzitz? A tzitz is, as we said, a forehead plate from pure gold. It's a plate of pure gold. Ufitachta alav pituche chosim kodesh lashem. You should engrave on it pituche chosim, an engravement of a seal. And what does it say on this forehead plate? 2 words: holy to Hashem. Parshas Tetzaveh, the commandment of Hashem to Moshe. But now let's go to Parshas Pekudei. That's the story of implementation. Tetzaveh is what Moshe heard. Pekudei is what the Jews did. Vayasu Pekudei lamet tes lamet. Vayasu es tzitz nezer hakodesh zav tor. They made Bezalel and company, the great craftsmen who built the sanctuary and wove the garments of the priests. They made the tzitz, Nezer HaKodesh, the holy crown, pure gold. Vayichtavu alav michtav pituche chosim kodesh lashem. They wrote on it a writing, a seal engraved, kodesh lashem, holy to Hashem. Do you see the discrepancy between the commandment and the implementation? There is one major discrepancy between what Hashem tells Moshe to do and what the Jewish people do. You see it immediately. He tells him, Ufitachta alav pituche choisam kodesh lashem. Ufitachta alav, which literally means you should engrave in it, and then again an engraving of a seal kodesh lashem. No word writing. It says twice, Ufitachta pituche. In the implementation, Vayichtavu alav michtav pituche choisam. The word Ufitachta is gone in the implementation of the tzitz. From pitachta it became ksiva twice. Vayichtavu alav michtav. Pituchei chaysim still says, but the first of pitachta alav is gone. Now you might say, what's the difference? They didn't write with a pen. You're dealing with gold. Of course they engraved in the gold. It's a metal. Gold is a metal. They had to engrave the words, engrave the words, Kodesh Lashem. Granted. But what is the reason for this change? Hashem says, V'itachta alav pituchei chaysim, and then Vayichtavu alav michtav pituchei chaysim. Could have said, Vayifatchu alav pituchei chaysim. That's the question. The Rogatchover asks in Parshas Pekudei, and he intimates here in Parshas Behaaloscha. So, let's go to the next stage. Next stage. He quoted here that the Jews did not want individual letters. They wanted whole words, and this is an argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. What is the argument? If an ois is a metzias, if a letter is significant. Where is this argument? It's 2 times in Yerushalmi Masechta Soita. Again, let's give context. There is a situation in Parshas Nosai, we know, if a marriage is going through a crisis, there is no harmony in the house, there's an accusation that there is adultery and disloyalty in the house. The woman is screaming, I'm a good lady, but the trust is destroyed. And you know, when there's no trust, it's very difficult to rehabilitate the situation. So who mixes in? The creator of the world says, you don't have to go to therapy for 20 years. You don't have to spend $25,000. I will be the marriage therapist. I will be the Poisek Hadar. I will examine and determine the situation. You bring her to Yerushalayim, come together. And this is a fascinating halacha, Parsha Soita, in Parshas Nosai, a long Parsha, whole Masechta Soita, we have a Mishnah and Gemara. And what do? The Kohen writes up a whole scroll on parchment, the Parsha of Soita, with Hashem's name numerous times. And then they do something that is unique to do in Yiddishkeit. He has water mixed with earth from the Mishkan or from the Beis HaMikdash, and he dissolves the holy Megillah Soita, the scroll, in the water, and of course that means God's name is being erased and dissolved in the water, and after there is the Mechikas Hashem, after the name of Hashem and the Parsha, the words are dissolved, the ink is dissolved, he gives it to her to drink. And here God serves as the cosmic therapist. If she's authentic and she says the truth, she will be blessed physically, emotionally, spiritually, family life, and niksa v'dizra zara, as the Gemara in Sait explains at length. And if not, the water becomes fatal, as the Parsha describes in Masechta Sait. At every stage of the game, they ask the lady, do you really want to drink this? Remember, if there's just an admission, there'll be a separation, there'll be a divorce, and everybody goes home and moves on with their life. But if she insists, she drinks the water. And if she's fine, now, unless the husband decides that he's more religious than God, which does happen sometimes, the husband says, I know better than the Ribbono Shel Olam, then this marriage has nothing to do, and she's probably better off without him. But if he can at least say that Hashem knows what he's doing, and he says this marriage is fine, this woman is trustworthy, they go back, and everything, they live, as we always say, happily ever after, and they're probably somewhere in Muncie, I don't know exactly where they are, or wherever else they are in the world, but happily ever after. Okay? But this is no small thing, because you're erasing God's name. And this is what the Gemara famously says, and the Rambam brings it at the end of Hilchas Chanukah. Kol HaTorah nitna lasas shalom b'olam. The whole Torah was created to bring peace into the world. Gadol HaShalom. Peace is so powerful. Sher Hashem nimchak lasas shalom ben ish le'ishta. Usually we don't erase Hashem's name. It's a very serious thing, not only for us, kivayachol, for God. Erasing Hashem's name is erasing holiness of the divine in the world. But to make peace between a husband and a wife, Hashem says, I want to make peace. There's a word from the Mizritcha Magid. The Medrash says in Shmois Rabbah, Perik Lamed, that Kol Magid Varav LiYaakov, Chukov Mishpatov LiYisrael, every mitzvah that Hashem tells others to do, he does himself. So all mitzvahs he does, that's why the Gemara asks him, brachas, tefillin, the Mara Alma, Mike Sivbahu. What does it say in Hashem's tefillin? Why does it have to say something in his tefillin? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also maniach tefillin. However we understand it, but he does all the mitzvahs. No, so how does Hashem observe the mitzvah of Avos Hashem? How does he observe the mitzvah of loving God, loving himself? So on this we say he loves Bonem Atem L'Hashem Elokeichem. He loves every Jew. And every Jew is a chelik Elokeim Imal. So by loving a Jew, he loves God. How does Hashem observe the mitzvah of Yiras Hashem? Who is he afraid of? Who is he afraid of? The answer is, since the Gemara says, Hakol b'dei shamayim chutz meyiras shamayim, everything is in the hands of heaven besides fear of heaven. In other words, everything is in the hands of Hashem besides your moral choices, because we have free choice. So Hashem kevayachal is afraid of what a person is going to choose. That's the Yiras Hashem. How does Hashem observe the mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh? The mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh, of self-sacrifice, the answer is, Mechikas Hashem lasas shalom b'nish leishta. Having his name erased, this is a diminishment of the holiness of the divine in this world, which is why it's forbidden, just to make peace between a husband and a wife. Granted. But for this, you have to have a kosher Megillah Soita. If it's not a kosher Megillah Soita, you're just erasing Hashem's name in vain. So what happens if the Kohen writes the Parsha of the Megillah, Soita, and then he decides he wants to make pictures? You know, people sometimes want to make pictures. He wants to add something. If he adds, it disqualifies the scroll. It has to be a Megillah, a scroll with parchment that contains only the Parsha of Soita. If he starts adding things, it disqualifies it. It's not a kosher Megillah. And therefore, if he adds things and then he erases it, he's erasing God's name in vain. On this, there's already an Isser Loisasa. There's an Isser Malkus. Zog the Gemara in Yerushalmi, Soita, Pedig Beis Halacha Dalet. Kama oisyus kosuv ba v'sheyeh shaloi l'tzayrich. How many letters does the Kohen have to add to the scroll that makes it shaloi l'tzayrich v'yeh chayav? In other words, these letters make it already an unworthy, unusable scroll. And therefore, if you erase it now, you're liable because you erased the divine name. Tani Reb Chagan said, Beis Shammai Yomrim Achas. Beis Shammai says one letter already disqualifies it. Beis Hillel Yomrim Shtayim. Beis Hillel says at least two extra letters. Amar Reb Hila, Taimun de Beis Hillel, the rationale of Beis Hillel is they lichtav Yud Kei. Two letters could make up a word. The word Yud Kei, which is Hashem's name. You just add one letter, it's stam, it's a scribble, it's not significant. But Shammai says no. One letter already disqualifies the Megillah Soita. Now if he erases it, he's chayav, he's liable. He transgressed the sin of not allowed to erase Hashem's name. A similar argument is in another place in Yerushalmi in Soita, Perek Gimel Halacha Gimel. Kama yimchak. Let's say the woman decides she doesn't want to drink. She'll admit. He erases it anyway. He starts erasing it. Kama yimchak. How much does he have to erase to be liable if he's erasing it unnecessarily? Tani Reb Chanin, Beis Shammai Yomrim Achas. One letter of Hashem's name is already a liability. Beis Hillel Yomrim Shtayim, two letters at least. Why? One letter of Hashem's name is not Hashem's name. Yud, it's not Hashem's name. Two letters. Amar Reb Eli, Taimun de Beis Hillel Kedei Lichtav Yud Kei. At least two letters. Enough to write Yud Kei, which is one of the names of Hashem. There's other names that have more letters, but at least two letters has a psamatzias. So the Rogatchover now says, what is the argument here? The argument is, in his words, Im ois have gedem etzias. Does one letter have significance in the world of halacha? So when the Kohen adds that single letter, does it mean anything? Beis Hillel says it's nothing. It's nothing. Don't look at it. Nothing happened. Both in terms of writing and in terms of erasing. Beis Shammai says absolutely yes. Ois achas makes it or breaks it. And what did the Rogatchover say? The Rambam paskind like Beis Shammai. What does he mean? Rambam Hilchis Mezuzah. Rambam Hilchis Mezuzah Perek Hey Halacha Gimel. Zog the Rambam. Im ksava shaloi besirtut. If you write a mezuzah without a sirtut, you know what a sirtut is? A sirtut is you sketch. Before you write the mezuzah, you don't just take a piece of parchment and you write lines. You first sketch out line. You scrape out lines, like a little incision in the parchment. You make straight lines, and then you write it on the line. So the writing, the ksav, is very straight and neat and beautiful and organized. That's called sirtut. A mezuzah needs sirtut. You score lines across before you start writing. If you write a mezuzah without these lines, without sirtut, or he wasn't meticulous with words that are full or missing. For example, you can have the same word with a yud or without a yud. The same word. With a yud or without a yud, or similar things. Or if you add it inside the mezuzah, not outside, inside the parchment, you just add one letter, where did the Rambam get this from? You add one letter at the end of the mezuzah, you just put in a letter, you put in a gimel, a dalet, one letter, not two. The Rambam says the whole mezuzah is disqualified. It's compared to Soita. The Gemara compares it to Soita. He learns here the halacha is like Beis Shammai. One ois is very significant, not just two. Kiddushin daf lamed amud aleph. Sagt the Gemara, lefichach nikru rishonim seifrim. The Gemara says, Rishonim were called Seifrim, Shayu Seifrim Kalaisi Shabbatayra. They used to count all the letters in Torah. Shayu, they used to say, Vav de Gachin, Chatzin Shalaisi Shal Sefer Torah. In Parsha Shmini, you have the word Gachain, snake. The Vav of Gachain is midway of letters of the Sefer Torah. Bari Rabbi Yosef, Vav de Gachin, Mehaigis or Mehaigis? The Vav of Gachin, you say, is midway. Does that Vav belong to the one side or the other side? Which side? Which half? First half or second half? Is it the last of the first half or the first of the second half? Or maybe it's an odd number and it's right in the middle. Amrullah, they told Rabbi Yosef, what do we have to ask questions? Let's open up a Torah scroll. Let's start counting. We'll count the letters. We'll get to the Vav of Gachin and we'll see if it's this side or that side. Did the Rabbi, the son of Bar Chana, not say that when they said this, they brought a Sefer Torah and they counted the letters? Amar lahu, Rabbi Yosef said, Inu pki b'chasedes v'yaseres, anan loy pkiina. They were masters of every single letter because they knew words that were sometimes missing letters and words that were not missing letters. When we say again missing letters, you can have, let's say, Bereshis, Beis, Resh, Aleph, Shin, Yud, Saf, but if you put a chirik under the Shin, right? You have Meireshis Hashan and Parshas Ekev without a Yud. Meireshis, that's called a Chaser, right? Reish could be with an Aleph, without an Aleph. Reishis, Reish Aleph Shin Yud Saf, or Reish Shin Yud Saf. In Parshas Bereshis, you have Bereshis, Beis, Reish Aleph Shin Yud Saf. Parshas Ekev, Eretz Hashem Hashem Elokecha Meireshis Hashana, Reishis Chaser Ksiv. It's still, you still pronounce it the same way. Reishis, the Reish we pronounce with a tseira, so it's Reishis. So do you really need the Aleph? Depends. A yater means you put in the Aleph. A chaser means you take out the Aleph. There are so many words like this in a Sefer Torah, and you have to know if it's chaser or yater. Rabbi Yosef said they were masters, so they could count the letters. We can't. In other words, we don't have that knowledge of the single letter. What do we see from here? The significance of the single letter. He says we don't have that pkiyus in the one letter, even if it doesn't make a difference to the word. The one letter independently, and therefore Rabbi Yosef says we don't have the count. And I want to know if there's a tradition about the Vav of Gachain, if it belongs to the first half or the second half. Apparently for Rabbi Yosef, this was very significant to know where that Vav of Gachain belongs. The explanation of that is a separate Parsha that has to do with Gachain. The Marsha says is the first snake of Bereshis. We come back to that snake in Parshas Shmini, so it's quite a central theme in Chumash. We now come to another machloikis in Meseches Shabbos, Daf Kuf Tesvav, which the Rogatchover again brings in Parshas Pekudei. This machloikis is another fascinating argument. You read it, at first glance it doesn't seem very significant, but we suddenly discover its significance. A little context. The Mishnah Masechta Shabbos tells us that when there's a fire in a house, as long as there's no life in danger, of course, if there's a life in danger, or even if there's a doubt of a doubt of a doubt that a life might be in danger, you do whatever you need to save a life. Pikuach nefesh, doiche Shabbos, as the Gemara says in Yuma, you could extinguish a flame even on Shabbos to save a life. But if there's absolutely no question that a life will not be in danger, generally speaking, they did not allow a person to start saving his assets and his properties, or her assets and properties, as the Gemara explains. Adam bohul alma moinoi. People are very, very sensitive to their property, and they're going to naturally come to extinguish the flames, which would be a violation of Shabbos, which is, of course, very serious. But there were a few things they allowed you to save. One of them is kol kisvei hakodesh matzilim mipnei hadleika. If you have kisvei hakodesh, what we call in English scriptures, the holy writings of the Panaach, which they had then as scrolls, Sifrei Torah, you're allowed to save them. Says the Gemara, what if the Sefer Torah is old, and many of the letters have already been, yeah, they faded out. Bolu, they faded out. Are you still allowed to save it? So the Gemara says, as long as you have a Parsha, what's a Parsha? What's the smallest Parsha? As long as you have to have a Sefer Torah. Yeah? Vayhi ben Soya ha'aron, Vayoyim Moshe's two psukim. It's basically 85 letters. So if you have a Sefer Torah with a Parsha, which means the smallest Parsha, Vayhi ben Soya ha'aron, 85 letters, it's eligible to save on Shabbos. That's what the Gemara says. Zog the Gemara, Shabbos kuftas vavi boyalu, they asked a question. Hani shmoinim v'chamish oisis. These 85 letters that in a Sefer Torah that allows you to save it, mechunazos or mefuzaris? Do the letters have to be cohesive, gathered together, readable in words, or no, even scattered? A letter here, a letter there. Reb Huna amar mechunasas. Huna says they have to be together. Reb Chizda amar afilu mefuzaris. Chizda says even scattered. What's the argument? You have 85 letters, but there's a sequence, there's a cohesiveness. The letters make up words. Then it has the significance of a Sefer Torah. That's the view of Reb Huna. Similar to Beis Hillel, who says, one letter doesn't mean anything. You need at least two. Reb Chizda says, no, you have 85 isolated, scattered letters. It still has the holiness of a Sefer Torah that you could save on Shabbos under all circumstances, even though it's a letter here, it's mifuzares. The ois achas has profound significance, similar to the machloikus of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, even if not the same. Let's now go to the tzitz. Sukkah daf Hey Amar Aleph. The Tanya, the Brisa taught, tzitz doime kemin tashel zahav. The tzitz was a plate of gold. V'rachav beis boyes. Its width was 2 fingers. Umukov me'oizen la'oizen. It surrounded the forehead of the Kohen Gadol from ear to ear. V'koisav alav shnei shitin. And he would write on it 2 lines. Kodesh Lashem. Kodesh Milmata. Lashem Milmaila. Kodesh on the bottom line. Lashem on the higher line. V'im kasvei b'shit. I'm sorry. Beis Shittin. Sorry. I read the next one. 2 lines. Yud Hey Milmaila. V'kodesh Lamed Milmata. Nobody wanted to correct me. Okay. Yud Hey on top, Kodesh Lamed on the bottom. So on the bottom of the tzitz it said Kodesh La. And then on the top line it said Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hashem's name. So Hashem's name was self-contained on the top of the tzitz. Under it was Kodesh La, holy 2. That's what the Gemara says. Amar Rebbe Lezer Rabbi Yossi says, Ani re'isiv b'roimi. I saw it in Rome. I was in Rome. Because of a love Kodesh Lashem b'shita achas. It said Kodesh Lashem in one line. You looked at the tzitz, it said Kodesh Lashem. Wasn't Kodesh La on one line and Hashem on the top line. A testimony of Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi. You would think such a testimony is pretty powerful. He saw it. What are you going to argue? Logic? The man saw it in Rome. So let's see how the Rambam says the halacha. Rambam Hilchas Klei HaMikdash Perek Tes Halacha Aleph. Keitzad Ma'aseh Hatzitz. Oiseh Tashel Zav Reichav Shtei Etzboyos. You make a plate of gold. Why 2 fingers? Makif Me'oiz and Loiz. And Koisav Alav Shnei Shittin. 2 lines. Kodesh Lashem. Kodesh Milmata. Lashem Milmaila. Kodesh on the bottom. Lashem on the top. Okay, there's a question here if there's a mistake in the Rambam or not. Because the Gemara says Kodesh La on the bottom, Hashem on top. That's a separate sugya. V'im kosvoi b'shita achas kosher. If you wrote it in one line, it's fine. Upa'amim kosvu shita achas. And there were times they wrote it in one line. How does the Rambam know? Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi said he saw it in Rome. The Rambam is not suspecting, of course not, that he's not saying the truth, but he's not even suspecting that it was just a replica. It was perhaps real, and they did it, but the Rambam doesn't say it has to be done that way. On the contrary, the way he puts it is you write it in 2 lines. If you wrote it in 1 line, it's kosher. And sometimes they did it in 1 line. Pa'amim kasvu shitachas. Okay. Now we come to the next step. And that is the halacha of sirtut. I mentioned sirtut. Chazal instituted that kisvei hakot, when you write a pasuk, you need sirtut. What does it mean again? You score lines, you sketch out lines before you write it. What's the reason for it? The reason for it is, one reason is the words should be straight, not crooked. You have a line, the words stay above the line, so they're straight. It's out of respect to the Sefer Torah, the mezuzah, the Kisvei HaKodesh, or even if you're just writing psukim. You're writing psukim, right? Not in a Sefer Torah, you're writing psukim in a letter or something else, another document, you need sirtut. Another reason is to show that it's unique. It's divrei Torah, it's quoting the Panaach. Because you're quoting psukim, so these letters, just like we put things in quotation marks, or you put things in a different font, you want to demonstrate that it's unique. Another reason is it adds value to the paper or the parchment or the papyrus that they were using, so they wouldn't throw it away, or that the holiness of the psukim should be written on a prominent piece of paper. Different reasons the Mefarshim give for sirtut. Let's see how the Aruch HaShulchan summarizes the halachas of sirtut in the context that is necessary to us. Aruch HaShulchan Siman Reish Pei Daled. Amru Chazal begitten vavam et beis. The Gemara says in Gittin, vav da vav sha'asur lichte vav pasuk echad b'loi sirtut. You're not allowed to write even 1 verse from the Torah Nevi'im Uksuvim without first scoring lines before, making an incision with the lines and then writing. V'rak shtei toivus koisvim b'loi sirtut. The Gemara brings a shit of Rabbi Yitzchak, only 2 words you can write without sirtut. But if it's 3 words, you already need lines. V'yesh soiver sham, the Gemara brings another opinion there, the shalosh tevis mutar v'arba asur. 3 words are permissible, 4 not. Harambam b'soy perik shvi m'sefer Torah pasak and the shalosh mutar arba asur. In Hilchas Sefer Torah, in the 7th chapter, the Rambam paskins like the second view of the Brisa. 3 yes, 4 not. 3 words you don't need, 4 you do need. Aval b'perik revi mi yibum kos of the shalosh asur. But in the halachas of Yibum, when they write a shtar, a document for the woman who either gets Yibum or Chlitza when her husband dies childless and she marries her brother-in-law, gets separated from her brother-in-law. Over there the Rambam says when you quote the pasuk, even 3 words need sirtut. Hilchas Sefer Torah, he says only 4. Hilchas Yibum, he says 3. Some say it's a mistake in the Rambam. L'chein kos v'shebekanu toz v'agos Maimonides. Because Maimonides says it's a mistake the first time in the Rambam. V'gam habalalachas gdoil the first time. V'gam habalalachas gdoilas v'arosh paskul l'chumra v'chein kas v'atur v'ashulchan aruch v'hachi kaimalon. The balalachas gdoilas, the rosh, the tur, the shulchan aruch, and yoredei simin reish pei dalet all say 2 words. You don't need a line. You don't need a sketched line. 3 words of a pasuk you already need. In the Rambam, there seems to be a contradiction. Some say it's a mistake the first time, and the Rambam really meant the second time, which is 3 already you need. Others say, like the Lechem Mishnah and many others, that there's no contradiction. The Rambam there was talking about a Sefer Torah, and a Sefer Torah, it's a whole different level over there. Only 4 words need a sirtut, but if you're taking a pasuk somewhere else, like in Yibum or Chlitza, there we are more stringent because you're taking it away from a Sefer Torah. Over there, the Rambam is more stringent. But lahalacha, when you're quoting a pasuk, you're writing a pasuk, even 3 words you need sirtut, not 2 words. Ein chiluk bein al klaf nayer chikas be'etzim my bezav. No difference if you're writing on parchment or paper, you're engraving on wood or on gold. No difference. Ein lichtev pasuk mikol Panaach b'loy sirtut. You're not allowed to write a pasuk of anywhere of the Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, including 3 words of a pasuk, without first engraving a line, whether it's wood or gold or writing on a piece of paper or piece of parchment. If you're using already a ksav ashuris, which is the writing of the Sefer Torah, already more than 2 words is not good. No. So now come back to the tzitz. Come back to the tzitz. Did the tzitz need sirtut? Did the tzitz of gold need sirtut? Did the Kohen Gadol have to? Did whoever made Betzalel, did he have to first engrave before writing Kodesh Lashem? It's a pasuk in Parshas Tetzaveh, pasuk in Parshas Pekudei. Does he have to first make lines in which to write Kodesh Lashem?
On 1 line, yes, and 2 lines, no.
Oh, depends. If it's 2 words, do you need sirtut? No. Shtayim ein koisvin, right? If it's 3 words, you need sirtut. So let's understand. If they wrote Kodesh, La, and Hashem, then you need sirtut? Yes. Kodesh, La, what did the Gemara say? Kodesh was on 1 line, La was on the same line, and then on the other line was Hashem. So it's 3 words. If it's 3 words, you need sirtut. If they wrote it in 1 line, Kodesh Lashem, do you need sirtut? Then you don't need sirtut. It's 2 words. When you're quoting a pasuk of 2 words, nobody holds you need sirtut. The question was 3 or 4. The halacha is 3 you need, but 2 for sure you don't need. If so, says the Rogatchover, look at the difference between Tetzaveh and Pekudei. This was the difference. Come back to Tetzaveh. Hashem said to make the tzitz one way, they made it a different way. Rebbe Lezer Rabbi Yossi said what he said. He saw the tzitz in Rome. And yet, we don't follow him. We say that the tzitz could be in 2 lines, even though in Rome he saw it 1 line. How can you argue with a metzius with a reality? Here we have a whole new perspective from the Rogatchover God. Come back to the psukim in Tetzaveh and Pekudei. Go to Tetzaveh. V'asisat tzitz zav toir ufitachta alav pituchei chosim kodesh Lashem. You see why it says 2 times engrave. Ufitachta alav pituchei chosim kodesh Lashem. What are the 2 things you're engraving? One is the words, Kodesh Lashem, but before you engrave the words, you first need to score lines. Ufitachta alav. First you have to make lines, sirtut. Pituchei chosim. And then you'll engrave in the seal the 2 words, Kodesh Lashem. What happened in reality? In reality, in Pekudei, they made the tzitz, Vayichtevu alav michtav pituchei chosim Kodesh Lashem. Here you don't have any more 2 engravings. They wrote on it, and what did they write? They wrote the words that are engraved. Which words? Kodesh Lashem. You know why? There was no sirtut. You know why there was no sirtut? Because they only made 2 words. They made 2 words because they did it in 1 line. They did it in 1 line, so therefore it's only 2 words, Kodesh Lashem, you don't need sirtut. Now the big question is, Why the change? Is it a kosher tzitz? It's a kosher tzitz. The Rambam clearly says it's a kosher tzitz. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi says he saw it in Rome. They made it that way by the time of the Beis HaMikdash too. It's a kosher tzitz. Why would they change? Why would they change? You know why they would change? Because the question is la a separate word? Is la a separate word? If it's 3 words, what does it mean it's 3 words? Kodesh, la, shem. So la is a self-contained word, but la is only 1 letter. Usually it's hard to find in Chumash, right? You don't have words with 1 letter. You have in Parshas Hazinu. Ha! La Hashem tigmulu zos. Ha la Hashem tigmulu zos. That's rear. There's no word. It's not 2 letters. We have a Lord Av, Father, 2 letters. Ba, Cain, is 2 letters. Yud Kei, Hashem's name is 2 letters. That's what Beis Hillel says. Here we would have a unique situation that Kodesh La Hashem is a word of 1 letter. Tain is the Rogatchover, something happened. Initially, the perspective was that 1 letter contains the same significance like a word. So therefore, the tzitz is made up of 3 words, even though 1 word is made up of 1 letter, and therefore it needs sirtut. After that, something changed. And now they can't see anymore in 1 letter the significance of a word, like the view of Beis Hillel. And therefore, there's no la separate. Kodesh Lashem, it's 2 words, and therefore you don't need sirtut. That's the difference of Tetzaveh and Pkude. What was the change? We see that Tanoim and Amoraim generations later are arguing about it. What's the gedder of an ois? Does an ois in and of itself have significance? They're still arguing about it generations later. What is the change the Jewish people went through? Here the Rogatchover in Parshas Pekude introduces a Gemara in Menachos Chavtes. Zog the Gemara in Menachos Daf Chavtes Amud Beis. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav. B'shah Shalom Moshe Lamarim, when Moshe went up to heaven, Motzei LaKadosh Baruch Hu Sheyoyeshev V'Koyser Ksarim LaOisis. He found Hashem tying crowns, drawing crowns on the Sefer Torah. As Rashi says, on the letters of the Sefer Torah, we have 7 letters that have what's called tagim. You know what I'm talking about? Those little, they look like little zions, little thorns on top of the Sefer Torah. 7 letters. Shatnas Get, Shin, Ayin, Tes, Nun, Zayin, Gimel, Tzadik. On top of those letters, you have like 3 little lines. He found Hashem drawing crowns on the letters. That's one example of crowns. Amar Lefonav, Moshe said, Ribono shel olam, mi ma'akev al yodcha? Who's forcing you to do this? Like, are you working for somebody? Like, what are you doing this for? Amar loy, Adam echad yesh, asad liyas b'soif kamadoides, v'akiva ben Yosef shmoi. She'asad lidrer, shal koil, koitz v'koitz, tilei tilim, shal halachas. There's going to be a man at the end of many generations. His name is going to be Akiva, the son of Yosef. On each one of these thorns, on each one of these lines, he's going to expound mounds and mounds of halacha. Don't think it's futile. Each one of these little crowns contains enormous significance. Rabbi Akiva is going to comprehend them and expound on them. And the Gemara continues to tell the story how Moshe asked to see and meet Rabbi Akiva and actually hear a shiur from him, which Moshe did not understand. Next, Brachas Nun Hey Amud Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Yoideya Haya Betzalel Etzaref Oisish Shenivru Ben Shamayim V'Aretz. Betzalel, the craftsman who builds the Mishkan, knew how to configure together the letters with which heaven and earth were created. Through the configuration of the divine letters, Ba'asara ma'amoris nivra, the world was created with 10 utterances. Or as the Pasuk says, B'dvar Hashem shamayim nasu v'ruach piv kol tzvam. Heaven was created through the words of the divine. But Betzalel knew how to configure the letters with which heaven and earth were created. When Moshe comes up to heaven, Hashem says, On each letter, on different letters, there's going to be a little tag. Not only not a letter, a little crown, a little zion, but it has tremendous amount of significance. Rabbi Akiva will understand it. This is not futile, this is not in vain. This is in the beginning, when he comes up to heaven, after the giving of the Torah, when Hashem is preparing the Sefer Torah. This is true even about a tag, a crown. If this is true about a crown, you can understand how true this is about a letter. Suggests Rabbeinu Yosef Rosen, the Tzafnas Panaach, the Rogatchover. What happened? What happened in between Parshas Tetzaveh and Parshas Pekudei? What happened in between the commandment to build the Mishkan and the building of the Mishkan? Something happens in between. In between Tetzaveh and Pekudei, what do you have? Anybody? What do you have between Tetzaveh and Pekudei? Yeah, you have Parshas Kisisa. Parshas Kisisa is the creation of the golden calf and the breaking of the luchas, the breaking of the tablets. The Shviras HaLuchas happens over there. It says that transformed everything. That breaking caused that they could not see anymore what exists in the single tag, in the single crown, and what exists in the single letter. What now makes sense are letters, words that convey a message. The single isolated letter, which held infinite value and significance before, was no more. As the luchas broke and scattered into little pieces, and as they scatter into little pieces, every piece is self-contained and you don't see the full picture, their paradigm changes. And therefore, when they make the tzitz in Parshas Pekudei, they can't use anymore the paradigm of Parshas Tetzaveh, where one letter makes up a whole word. They can't see a word in a letter. All they could see in a letter is part of a word, but not a full word, and therefore La Hashem must come together, Kodesh La Hashem together. Therefore, there's no need for a second engraving, for a second sirtut. That's the change of Tetzaveh and Pekudei. They don't have anymore that ability that Betzalel has. L'tzarev ben oisis shenivru ben shamayim va'aretz. Each letter self-contained, each letter a part of creation, and he could configure it to create creation when you bring letters together. That means each letter on its own has a significant power. They don't have that anymore because Chet HaEgel. This is a change. Because of this, their paradigm is completely transformed. What does this mean now? What does this mean? We have an idea. What does it mean to see in a letter a word or not to see in a letter a word? And remember, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are arguing about this generations later. What's the significance of a letter? Reb Chizda and Reb Huna are arguing about this 85 scattered letters. What does it mean? Does it make up a Sefer Torah? The Rambam discusses this in Hilchos Mezuzah. It's a question about the tzitz. In Kiddushin, the Gemara says, we don't know chaseris v'yaseris. We don't understand the significance of a letter. We don't have that mastery. What is it? What are we talking about? What are we referring to? So now let's go from the world of Rogatchover takes us to a certain place, to a certain level. And now let's go to the depth, the deeper spiritual depth of what he is really conveying here. We come to our last source now. Torah Parshas Vayeshev. This is a discourse, a mimer of the Baal HaTanya. It's interesting in Shalsei Tshuvas Tzafnas Panaach, the Rogatchover generally did not quote Acharonim. He was very dismissive of most of the Acharonim. The Rambam, that was his Rebbe. There was very few except. You're dealing even with people like the Ramah, the Shulchan Aruch. You're dealing with top levels. The Rogatchover was extremely dismissive. A unique exception was the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya. He writes in Shalsei Tshuvas Tzafnas Panaach, I think Siman Nun or Nun Beis, Hagon Ha'amiti Zechrono Livracha. He was a unique disciple of the Baal HaTanya, his Torah. His Kunter Sachar, his Shulchan Aruch Harav. He once told Reb Gedalia Hertz, the Rosh Hashiva of Sfas Emes in Ger, not Reb Gedalia Herz's father. What was his name? Yeah, Reb Gedalia Herz, Rashiva of Sfas. It was a Ger Chassid that to compose the Svaris and Kuntras Achron and Shulchan Aruch Harav, he had to have, he said, Gidim Azoi Dik Vidos. The arteries in the brain had to be as thick as this to be able to create the Svaris, the logical ideas in Kuntras Achron and Shulchan Aruch Harav. So Yosef Zevin writes in his Isha B'Shittas that he found that many of the Yesodis of Brisk, of Rabbeinu Chaim Halevi, Chidush Rabbeinu Chaim Halevi al Rambam, many of the fundamental ideas of the famous Shitta of Brisk he found in Kuntras Achron of Shulchan Aruch Harav. But this is a maimer of the Balatanya in Vayeshev on the story of the sheaves. Yosef has a dream. V'hine anachnu ma'almim alumim b'soy chasada. My brothers and I are all in the field, and we're gathering together sheaves of grain. We're gathering together stalks of grain and making sheaves, making bundles. And we make the bundles, we bring them together. What is the significance of this dream? You say it was a dream. There was profound significance. This is, he says, what all the brothers do. They take together stalks and they turn them into bundles and sheaves. Then there's something else. They rise up and they bow down to Yosef's bundle. That's stage 2 of the Maimer. But we're now going to address the first part of the story. So let's see. The words may be a little not so familiar. It's mystical terms, but I'll explain. And he explains it quite elaborately, relatively speaking. There's a concept in Kabbalah, in the works of the Arizal, especially known as Shviras HaKelim. The smashing, the breaking of the vessels. On the pasuk va'aretz ha'isa soyu v'voyu, the world was chaos. The Arizal teaches that before our universe was created, there was a previous universe called Olam HaToyu, the world of chaos. The challenge in that world was there was tremendous light, and the light was so powerful, so intense, the vessels broke. It's called Shviras HaKelim. As the vessels broke, something happened. On the debris of that world, our world was built. It's called the world of Tikkun. Here he explains the concept of Shviras HaKelim, breaking the vessels. And remember, we are focusing on breaking the luchas. But breaking of the luchas was a continuum of the breaking of the vessels. So he says, I'm going to read fast. I'll translate. If you don't understand something, you can ask. As the vessels broke, naflu kama b'chinas. A lot of things fell down. Lots of things fell. As things broke, nothing contained them. They fell and they scattered. What do I mean? Many things. The hainu, b'chinas neshamas, b'chinas malachim, b'chinas koiches lekim atzma. Souls, angels, divine energies. Hashem's koiches fell. Kulam nishberu v'naflu lamata b'bri yitzirasi. All broke and fell down below. We'll explain what that means, fell down below. Doesn't mean like you drop a ball from a roof and the ball falls. It's a metaphor. Everything here is metaphoric, all allegorical. It's a mashal. It falls down below in what we call the worlds of creation, formation, and action. When we say the divine koiches, the divine energies fell, it means that they went down to give life to new worlds that they were not before involved in. The divine energy was divine energy. Now the divine energy went to give, it fell, it degraded itself, it descended to give life to lower universes, including our world. What do we mean when we say everything broke? Vessels broke, sparks broke. What do we mean? It's a metaphor for fragmentation into many parts. Shvira, breaking, is a metaphor of taking something that is one and causing it to become fragmented. From all the letters, from all the words in the Hebrew language, he decided to choose one word, Baruch, blessed. That itself is a lesson. When you take a beis, a reish, a vav, and a chaf, and you combine them together, you have a word, and the word contains an idea. The idea is blessing. What happens? But what happens if you take the beis and you scatter it, you separate it from the Reish and the Vav. You have a Beis here and a Reish here and a Vav there and a Chav there. You're on a blackboard. You have Beis, Reish, Vav, Chav. The student reads, Baruch. Baruch, blessing. What if you have a Beis here and a Reish here and a Vav flying there and a Chav? You look at the Beis, what do you see? You see Beis. You see Reish. So now I ask you a question. Where does the idea Baruch come through? Does it come through the Beis or the Reish or the Vav or the Chav? Which one? The answer is, it comes through each of them, but they have to be combined. When they're combined, it's not one or the other. Each of them is part of the puzzle. But when they're combined, you could see a puzzle. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. The pieces come together, you see the picture. What if you have one piece here, one piece there? What is it? It's just nothing. It's a Beis, it's a Reish. So what does Shvira mean? Shvira means every letter is now separate. Does every letter make up the word Baruch? Yes. The word Baruch is not Beis, Reish, Vav, Chav. Each one of them is part of the puzzle. You can't have the puzzle without all the pieces. But when the pieces are separate, what happens? Each piece is really part of the puzzle, but you don't see it. What do you see? You see a separate piece. You see an isolated piece. Al derech zehu shviras hakelim detoyu. Shenispardu hakelim lachalokim rabim mefuradim zemizeh. The vessels separated into many parts. So the light that was manifested through these vessels departed. What does it mean departed? You can't identify the toichen, the pnimiyas, the energy anymore. Just like Beis, Reish, Vav, Chav. When they were together, you could see a blessing. Baruch. Now what do you see? Beis. Is there oir in Beis? Of course there's oir in Beis, but you can't see it anymore because it was detached. So therefore these divine energies descend and what is created from this divine energy? Worlds that are completely fragmented. There's you and there's me. And there's the mic, and there's a stender, and there's a tree, and there's a beam, and there's heaven, and there's earth, and there's 7 billion people, and there's hundreds of billions of insects, and millions, thousands and thousands of birds and mammals, and bushes and plants and trees, rocks and pebbles, and everything is fragmented. Nothing is one. It all comes from oneness, but we don't see it. Why? Shviras hakelim. The Beis and the Reish are scattered. Really, they're one. They're part of Baruch. But the Shvira means we see it as separate. So now when the divine energy of Beis creates a world, it creates a creature, that creature says, I am I. I'm not you. In the world of oneness, in the source, it's Baruch. It's one puzzle. It's one organic whole. But in this world of Shvira, we don't see the oneness anymore. So this has to do with yourself, with the world around you, with other people. Can you sense that your whole life is one story, one puzzle? Can you sense even one day as being one story? We don't see it. Every day I have 100 things to do and they're disconnected. That's why they give us headaches. That's where stress comes from. What does stress and anxiety come from? I'm being pulled here and I'm being pulled there. Here and there are two opposites. Right now you're getting a text. When are you coming home? It's like, I want to be here. I want to be there. Every person is pulled sometimes in hundreds of directions, sometimes in thousands of directions. Can you see your day as one unified entity? Your whole life is one entity. And then further, the whole world is integrated. Every person you meet, every experience is really part of Baruch. I told you, he could have chosen many words from Lashon Kodesh. Could have chosen the word Bereshis, but he chose the word Baruch, blessing. I tell you, that itself is a lesson. He wants to explain something and he chooses the word Baruch. Some people would choose the word Arur. They just like that word better, favas nisht. He chooses the word Baruch. But the concept is the same. This is the Shviras HaKelim. So you understand here how he conveys this concept. How does a fragmented world come from oneness? There had to be the breaking of the vessels. The divine sparks are now so to speak, isolated. They're not really isolated, but it's really one part of a piece of art. But the jigsaw puzzle, you just have a piece. You have a piece, and we have to bring the pieces together. So that's what he says. V'hinei, atzmus hamatzel baruch hu yachud u'miyuchad b'tachlis hayichud kenoida. Hashem is one completely. Ulazois kadeshi yisavu b'chinas anavroim shem b'chinas ribuy gadol b'chinas pirud shem b'chinas yesh v'davra b'fnei atzmai shezeh mamish hamenaged el amitis achdusoi baruch hu she'einoid mulvadoi hutzrich liyas adei shviras hakelim. How can there then be a world that is fragmented, where everything has an ego, where everything feels itself separate, which is mamish in opposition to the truth of Achdus, of Einoid Mulvadi? There's nothing outside of his unity. He had to make this whole breaking of the vessels. Shemachmas shenifredu lechalokim ktanim rabim ma'oid ayidei nasa b'chinas haribu shel hanevroyim. The separation into many little particles creates the multiplicity and diversity and fragmentation of all creatures. This allows also every created being to feel itself as completely distinct. I am I, and I am not you. As the vessels and the sparks descend, the more they descend, the more separation, the more multiplicity. The less they descend, the less the separation. The closer you come to feel his presence, the more unity. The more distance, the more the sense of fragmentation and separation and competitiveness and war and conflict and violence. It's all, the less unity, the less you feel the oneness, the source, the more the scattering, the more the separation, the more the breakdown of communication, until you have in our world outright war, bloodshed, abuse, violence, narcissism, selfishness, because there is no sense of unity, of achdus. So as these sparks, these koiches fall lower, in each world there is less of a consciousness of the source, so to speak. The oishis become more and more separated. They lose more of the original sense of the puzzle. In a higher world, you still feel some connection, and then you feel no connection, and then no connection whatsoever. On this world, complete fragmentation. The river comes out of Eden to irrigate the garden, Gan Eden, and from there the river splits up into 4 outlets, right? You have the Euphrates River and the Tigris River. That's Iraq, where the wars never stop, not physically and not spiritually, Talmud Bavli. And then, of course, you have Nahar Pishoin, and what's the other Nahar? Pishoin, Chidekel, Gichoin, and Pras. That's what happens, the separation. Interesting, the word oineg, it's brought in Kabbalah, oineg, pleasure, is the acronym of what? Eden, Nahar, Gan. As we shall see, when you could bring together back the garden with the river, with the source of the river, Eden, that's where pleasure comes from. Pleasure comes from unity. When things make sense in our brain, right? When things come together, when we bring things together, when things are united again, unity is what creates Einik. So now let's see further. This is true with angels, it's true with souls, it's true with koiches elikim, with divine energy. As the souls descend through many worlds, the souls also are fragmented. So we don't feel our oneness anymore. Just as it's true with souls, it's true with angels, it's true with divine energy. The more it comes down, the more separation. Every nefila, every yerida, more and more fragmentation, less and less awareness of the cohesive mosaic and tapestry of the truth of Einoid Milvade. It's all divine light. V'zehu avodas haYisrael. This is where we come into the picture. What's the work of the Jew? V'zois toiras ha'adam. Levarer birurin la'aloison mebchines ha'pirud la'achtos Hashem. The objective of life is to be mevarer birurim, to go into a fragmented world and to do boirer. What's boirer? Select. To be able to see the oneness, to be able to see the Beis and the Reish and the Vav and the Chaf as part of one word. To elevate a world from separateness into oneness. If you wish, you could say, as he put it elsewhere, Hashem is Rishus HaYachid. Creation of the world is Moitzi Rishus HaYachid Rishus HaRabim. He takes out reality from a private domain into a public domain, and the purpose is we should be Machnes Rishus HaRabim Rishus HaYachid. Bring it all back in from a public domain into a private domain. To reveal the symphony, the harmony, the oneness. The pasuk says, who is like your nation Israel? Goy echad ba'aretz. What is goy echad ba'aretz? Everybody explains what? One nation on earth. He says there's something much deeper. Goy echad ba'aretz means dahainu shem oisem b'chinas echad afilu ba'aretz. Goy echad ba'aretz means that even in the earth they create oneness. The echad is not only in heaven, it's on earth. Even though here on earth you have the greatest sense of fragmentation within the person himself or herself. Who are you? We're completely fragmented. We have conflicted thoughts and instincts and habits and natures, and between peoples and between nations. The uniqueness of Yisrael is to reveal the ultimate harmony, the yichud. Now you understand the dream of Yosef. Everybody is binding sheaves in the field. He says, why? They brought up all the sparks that fell down and are fragmented in the breaking of the vessels. They were elevating them back to the world of Atzilus. Over there they all become one because they're all an extension of God's unity. What does ma'almim alumim pirush? Al derech mashal, kamay shekoishrin ha'amorim shemekaptzin kamash riboilim rabbi ma'oid u'mechabrin noisam v'koishrin noisam baguda achas v'zeh nikra aluma. What is an aluma in Hebrew? You have stalks, and there are many, many stalks. Each stalk is separate, and you take them and you bring them together and you connect them and you make one bundle out of them. This is not easy work. In the beginning, they were all separate. And you tie them together, you turn them into a single, unified sheave or bundle. That is what the birurim are. That is what elevating the sparks are. You elevate them from mountains of fragmentation, lehiskawel, to be included, bebchinas mayenukvin ba'achdos Hashem. Shenimtze nasu v'nichlu bebchinas echad mamish mashahoya b'tchilu bebchinas pirud v'riboy. In the beginning, they were completely diversified, and now they are completely integrated. So now, what does this mean? What does this mean in a person's life? In a person's life, it means that there are two views of life. Two views of the world, two views of marriage. Two views of your relationship with your children, your relationship with people outside of you, your relationship with all of your experiences. One is the post-Shviras HaKelim view, the post-breaking of the view. Everybody is on their own, and everything is on their own. And even I am on my own from hour to hour, from minute to minute. One place, 1 minute I'm here, another minute I'm there. And as I said, we're pulled in so many different directions. When I ask you, what is the story of your life? Can you see one story pervading your whole life from the day you were born? And the story continues. It's very difficult because we live day by day. Now I have to run here. Today is Costco, today whatever it is. You got to go to the park, you're being schlepped. The person has to make a revenue, make money and raise a family and take care of your house and take care of bills and take care of health and take care of stress and take care of this. Every person with their issues, and sometimes there's grief and there's difficult pain and challenges, social, emotional, biological, spiritual, whatsoever. From the perspective of Shviras HaKelim, we're all broken. The world is broken. We're scattered. When you could, however, look at one letter, and what do you see in that letter? You don't see bays. In the bays, you see that the bays is just an expression of blessing. And the reish is also an expression of blessing. And the vav is also, but they're different letters. But they come together to create together baruch. But when they're together, I could see each one in that context. When they're fragmented, I look at a bays, I don't see it as a part of baruch anymore. Now this is only 4 letters. Imagine you're dealing with sextillion letters. Imagine you're dealing a number with 1 followed by 23 zeros. Not 4. Not 4, not 1,000, not 1,000,000, not 1,000,000,000, not 1,000,000,000,000. Give me 21 zeros, 22 zeros, 23 zeros, where our mind can't grab. That's what our world looks like. What does it say about Bezalel? What does it say about Bezalel? Let me give a metaphor for maybe in the world of biology or the world of science. And that is, we all know, the body contains approximately 100 trillion cells. Within each cell is a nucleus. Within each nucleus is a double copy of the human genome. Each genome contains 3.1 billion letters of genetic code. How the cell can contain 3.1 billion letters of genetic code is beyond astounding. You know what it's like? Taking a string, the height of the Empire State Building, and putting it under your fingernail. You ever try doing that? How about the height 3 times the Empire State Building and put it under your fingernail? But that's what our cell contains. So those letters of genetic code contained in each cell, if it would be transcribed, it would be able to fill a library of 5,000 books. 5,000 books right out in the library, that's what you have in that genetic code in the cell. So each cell has the blueprint of the entire body of which it is part. In each cell you have the genetic code, what we call the DNA of the entire organism. We can understand now to what extent the microcosm is a map of the macrocosm. We can understand to what extent the prat, the detail, is a map of the collective whole. From a single cell, it may be possible to reconstruct an entire organism. So you have 100 trillion cells in your body. Take one cell. Do you know the size of that cell? And in that cell, you have the whole body. You have the genetic program for the entire organism, for the entire body. But when I'm looking at a cell, I see one cell. But if I know how to look at a cell, what do I see? I see the whole body. Come back to Bezalel. Bezalel nu yoideya haya Bezalel litzarif oisis shenivra ben shemayim v'aretz. Zok Rashi over there, Bezalel understood the letters with which Hashem creates heaven and earth. Let's use our language. He understands the secrets of the DNA genetic code that when brought together can create the cells that can create the body. Or if you want to use maybe a different parable or a different expression, Betzalel knows the secret of the atoms. Everything that exists is basically molecules. Molecules are atoms coming together in the millions, billions, trillions, zillions, sextillions in order to create and make exist anything that we see, observe. From this little cup to this little stender to this little pinky. It's all molecules made up of numbers of items beyond our imagination. And each atom itself is made up of many parts, besides the nucleus of the atom. So Betzalel understands you need to bring many atoms together to create any creation. Those are oisius. Each atom on its own is part of the picture. But Betzalel understands the oisius shenivru ben shamayim v'aretz. Together, that combination creates the whole picture, but he could see it in every single letter, in every single ois. What the Meir Nevuchim, what the Rogatchover often calls atzamim nifradim. Distinct atzamim, distinct pieces of essence. In fact, the Rogatchover elsewhere says, the Gemara says, Chazal say, that Hashem made a condition with the Yam Suf. That if it does splits, great. And if not, Ani machzir eschem l'toyu v'voyu. I bring you back to a state of toyu. The Gemara also says in Shabbos, this is a mechiltan, vayoshev hayom le'isana. He made a deal with the Yam Suf. In the Gemara in Shabbos, he made a deal with the world. If the Jews accept toyu, they're great. Yoim hashishi. If not, Ani machzir eschem l'toyu v'voyu. I revert you back to a state of toyu. Everybody learns pshat what? The Jews don't accept toyu. If the sea doesn't split, I destroy the world. So Rogatchover says, why do Chazal say, I will return you back to a state of voyu? Return you back means you're going back to another state. You're not going back, you're being destroyed. He says, machzir means something else. It means separating the atoms. Tohu is the state of Shviras HaKelim. Shviras HaKelim means every atom is self-contained. Every cell is self-contained. It has everything. But if it's not brought together, you don't see everything in it. That's the state of tohu. That's what our life looks like. Our life is really completely one. To be able to see the divine perspective is to be able to see constantly that every single piece is a piece of the puzzle. It's part of one cohesive, harmonious story. But when I'm going through the challenge, I'm going through the difficulty, I'm going through the crisis, I can't see it. I'm in a state of shvira. But from the divine perspective, what's my job? Anachnu ma'almim alumim. Our job is to be farmers. What part? To take the stalks and simply to make bundles, to make sheaves. Yes, later they have to bow down to Yosef's sheaf. That's another pchina. Tzadik Yisod Olam, that's the continuation of the Maimon, that's not for this shear. So now come back to us. Who is the one who said that Moshe Rabbeinu saw Hashem making crowns on the top of the Sefer Torah? You remember? Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav. Who is the one who said Betzalel knew the secrets of the letters? Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav. I find it significant that it's the same person. Before the Chet HaEgel, when the Jews received Torah, the world came back to its wholeness. The Gemara says in Shabbos, Poskazu HaMosam. The dirt, the filth of the original experiences of the downfall of the world healed. So Moshe comes up and he sees Al Kol Koitz V'Koitz. On every thorn, Tilei Tilim Shel Halachas. What's Koitz? Koitz is one of those lines on top of a Sefer Torah. What does the word Koitz mean in Hebrew? A thorn. On every thorn, Rabbi Akiva saw Tilei Tilim Shel Halachas. He didn't see thorns. He saw mounds of halacha. He saw opportunities. He saw expressions of oneness with the divine. That's Rabbi Akiva. Moshe says, who are you doing this for? Who's going to understand these lines? He says, Akiva ben Yosef will understand these lines. Al kol koitz v'koitz. He won't see thorns. He won't see brokenness. He will see an opportunity for wholeness. That's Rabbi Akiva. But then they create the calf. The calf is the separation once again. What does Moshe do? He breaks the luchas. Moshe didn't break the luchas to punish the Jews. Moshe broke the luchas to give them a message. The message is, now we're going to go down into our brokenness, into our broken pieces, and find the oneness there. In many ways, it's of course a downfall. It's a degradation of reality. Just like the whole creation is a degradation of reality. From Rishus HaYachid, you went to Rishus HaRabim. The Shviras HaLuchas, the breaking of the Luchas, is again a Shviras HaKelim. It's another breaking of the vessel. What falls? What scatters? The first thing, the whole Torah scatters. The whole Torah is now in pieces. The Torah was one. It's not anymore one. It's broken pieces. What happens when it's broken pieces? Beis, Reish, Vav, Ches, Chaf are not working together anymore. I pick up a piece, and what do I see? I see a shard. I see a broken piece. I don't see haluchas, ma'isa lekimei, ma'michtav, michtav elikimu. I don't see the divine. I see a broken shard. What's my avoida now? Aron, luchos v'shivrei luchas monachim ba'aron. I have to pick up the broken luchas and put them back in the ark. I have to put them back in a container that will bring them together in the ark. But it's very different than the luchas were before. The luchas, the way they before, were one entity, indivisible. They didn't need an ark to contain them. They themselves were their own ark. They were one. Now that there's broken pieces, I need an aron to contain them. I need an ark. I need a person sometimes to contain it. I need myself. I need to be my own aron to contain all my broken pieces. I need to be my own aron. I need to contain it. I need to be the aron for other people. But now I can't anymore deal with one piece and see everything in one piece. That's what brokenness means. I now have to go and bring them back together because they're broken. So now it all comes together. Before the Chet HaEgel, Hashem says, make a tzitz. Kodesh La Shem. How many words? 3 words. 1 letter? Of course it's a word. Why is 1 letter not a word? You know what exists in 1 letter? You know what exists in 1 cell? You know what exists in 1 atom? It's not a letter. It's not a word. Of course it's a word. It's billions of words in a letter. The whole heaven and earth you could see in a letter. What does the Gemara say in Menachos? Behei nivra olam haza. Ganz olam haza is 1 hey. The whole olam haba is 1 yud. The same daf in Menachos, daf chavtes. The whole olam haza is 1 hey. A hey is nothing. Hala Hashem tigmul uzois. It's all in 1 letter. So the tzitz has 3 words. If it has 3 words, it needs sirtut. If it needs sirtut, Hashem says engrave it twice. 1 for the letters and 1 for the lines. Then comes the egel. Then comes the shvira. There's no kol kites for kites anymore. I don't see the power, the infinity in 1 letter because it's broken. And because it's broken, I only see the power in words when things come together. That's where I see integration. I don't see the etzem in every detail. Every detail seems isolated. Every experience in life seems self-contained. Every person I meet is a different story. Every moment is a different story. I don't live with oneness. But imagine somebody who does live with a pre-Shviras HaKelim perspective. Those are unique souls that when they look at the world, they see oneness. They look at Klal Yisrael, Knesset Yisrael, they see oneness. They look at the universe, they see oneness. They see a symphony. And every person is a note in this symphony. But all I see is isolated notes. I don't see the ballad. I don't see the symphony. So when they make a tzitz after the egel, what do? Kodesh La Hashem. La goes with Hashem. I'm sorry. I don't deal with isolated words. Give me groups. Give me things that make sense. Kodesh La Hashem. 2 words. No sirtut. There's no extra engraving in Parshas Pekudei. Years later, Beis Hillel says, 1 letter is nothing. You can add a letter to cite, it's nothing. You can add a letter, you can erase a letter. Beis Shammai says, no. 1 letter is everything. What about us 85 letters in a Sefer Torah? Reb Huna, Reb Chizda. Chizda says it has to be gathered. He says, Reb Huna says, no, it could be scattered. 1 letter has everything. Chasedis v'Yiseris has everything. The Rambam paskins like Beis Shammai. So what's the halacha by the tzitz? Let's understand. Does the tzitz have to be 2 lines or 1 line? How did the Rambam come up with this? The answer is the tzitz has to be 2 lines in a perfect world. But the Jews never made it that way. They never made it that way. Halachically, of course it should be 2 lines. But if you write it in 1 line, it's oich kosher. And sometimes they wrote it in one line. And according to the Rogatchover, they always wrote it in one line. Not only sometimes, they always wrote it in one line. Already in the Mishkan, they made it in one line. Let's now come back. You remember what we started with? The Jews left Har Sinai, Ketinoik, HaBoireach Mibeis HaSefer. Like a child going away from school. What do they do in school? What do children do in school? Kametz Aleph Ba, Kametz Beis Ba, Gimel, Patach Gimel Ga, Chirik Tzeder Shva. You remember those days? Or you already forgot how to say the Aleph Beis? Sometimes we also have to go back to learn Aleph Beis. A shat nisht. Some people are 20, 30, 40. They can't read it. We also have to learn the Aleph Beis. So there's a word as Kametz Aleph A. Das is Anochi Hashem Elokecha. When you teach a child Kametz Aleph A, you're not just teaching him a letter in the alphabet. You're giving him Anochi Hashem Elokecha. It's the Aleph of Anochi. You're giving him all of God. You're giving him the whole Torah. But of course, the child, if you're going to say, in this Aleph, you have Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, Baba Basra, Zvachim, Menachas, Chulin, with every Rashba, Maram Shif, Rebbe Akiva Eger, and Bircher Shmuel. Child will say, do me a favor. I want to be dismissed before I get dismissed. All he hears is an Aleph, Kametz Aleph A, and if you can get him to say Kametz Aleph A, you're a good teacher. That's for child. Oisius. So back to the original words of the Rogatchover. Loi ratzu lilmed oisis atayra pratim raktevis shleimus. They're here at the mountain for a year. They went through the golden calf. They went through the shvira. At this point, vayisum me'ar Hashem. It's not like we learn literally. They ran away. They said, I don't want God. I don't want Moshe. I don't want Torah. You're dealing here with Dardeya, the Medrash says. The highest generation, the only generation of Jews who saw God face to face. They weren't just regular sinners and rabble-rousers. This was a very deep idea. What are you doing in the Sefer? Beis HaSefer. You're learning letter by letter by letter, he says. That they didn't want. They want Tevis Shleimus. They want cohesive words, complete words. They want the letters to be attached to each other. They don't have the ability at the moment to be able to see the whole world in a grain of sand, and to see eternity in an hour. They can't see everything in an hour. They can't see eternity in an hour, and they can't see the entire universe in a flower. What they could see is Tevis Shleimus, complete words. Tina Kabarech Bebeis HaSefer, the child running away from the yeshiva, from the school. Over there, they say, we're learning Oisius. This was the ultimate Torah. The Torah where every letter contains everything, because there's no separation whatsoever. Every nuance is a reflection of everything. Every detail, you could see the whole Torah. Practically in Torah, it means that anything you're learning in Torah contains the truth of the entire Torah, just like the cell. You could be learning a sugya in Muktzah, or in Ribis, or in Pigul, or in Neusser, or in Shnayim Oichazin, or Bar Pedah, Kedushas Damim, Kedushas Aguf, or Krishma, or Psachim, whatever it is. You could be learning something about the new moon on Rosh Chodesh. But in that cell, in that sugya, in that Gemara, in Mishnah, Rashi, Tosfos, what do you see? The microcosm contains within it the whole organism. Zoi Satoira Adam. In that one cell you could see the fundamental ideas of Jewish philosophy, theology, spirituality, psychology, until concrete halacha. The one detail contains everything. It contains Teres HaNista and Teres HaNigla. It contains the existential truths of Judaism, theological truths of Judaism that permeate the entire universe and the entire human being until halacha lamaisa, concrete halacha and Shulchan Aruch. But when I open up a sugya, what do I see? What am I learning? I'm learning a detail, and some people kvetch and kvetch and kvetch, and they go more and dissect more and more and more and more and more, and they get into the tree and they lose the entire forest. Sometimes you could see the forest and lose the tree, but the ability to be able to look at the tree and see the whole forest. This is the Torah that our generation craves for. This is the Torah our generation yearns for. The boy who's learning a complicated sugya in Gemara, he wants to be able to see how this sugya speaks to his mind and also speaks to his soul and speaks to his heart, speaks to his physical self, his practical self, his spiritual self, his emotional self, or her spiritual and emotional self. Of course, there's understanding what it says and going deeper and deeper and deeper, but then be able to see in the ois the whole picture. To be able to heal Shviras HaKelim. As we come closer to the age of unity, they ran away from the Beis HaSefer. They said, we can't do this. We're not good at this anymore. They ran away. That's called the Puranis, the first negative experience. In many ways, it was a degradation. On the other hand, it creates an opportunity to be able to once again reveal within the broken parts the complete wholeness. So therefore, the luchas are put back together. The Shviras HaKelim and the Shviras HaLuchas are put back together. That each ois contains the whole picture. But sometimes when I'm learning, it's hard for me to see that. I have to be able to go deeper, to be able to bridge that gulf in Torah. And once I can do it in Torah, I could do it in myself, in my psyche, and then I could do it in the whole world. Have a wonderful week.
Away. We see there's a Rishima left from this.
You want to know if Olam HaToyu is the backdrop radiation of the Big Bang?
Right.
Perhaps, Al Pi the writings of the Arizal, Olam HaToyu is a completely spiritual concept,
Right.
a metaphysical concept.
I know. I got into arguments with.
But there may
Rabbi
be,
Cantor about this
there are
10 years
those
ago.
who want to explain it physically, and even if Olam HaToyu doesn't mean physical, it could be that the way the world was created reflected certain components of that pattern. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the Big Bang morphed into order, not into chaos. Right?
Well, it started morphed into there was a plasma,
Right.
and then it only settled into order. I mean,
Right.
First it was totally disordered. Then it settled, then as we.
I'm saying it settled down, it cooled down into a world of tikkun.
Right.
Why do you need to say that there are two sirtot? Why can't there be one sirtot if you hold it there? If you even if
Two words, you don't need sirtut. Two words, you don't need sirtut.
if you hold it, there's three words. You need sirtot.
Three words need sirtut.
So why do you need two? Why can't you just settle with one sirtot? Kodesh Hashem.
No. If it said Kodesh Hashem, there was no sirtut. They just put in the letters.
Oh, you have to separate the la to make a third. Oh, once you have.
Once La and Hashem are separated,
We
it's
have
three
You
words.
have to do that in order to get.
Of course. Because Kodesh La, the Gemara says, were on one line, and Yud Kei Vav Kei on another line. So La and Hashem were separated. You understand? So it's three words. You get it? They were two separate lines. You can't have the same word on two separate lines. And not only that, one was on the bottom, one was on the top. La was on the bottom, Hashem was on top. So it's completely two separate words. So it's three. Once it's three, it's sirtut.
Because they want Hashem to be on top. That's all.
Right, but the bottom line is it's two separate words. The bottom line, pun intended. So that's the tikkun of the shvira, to be able to go back to that achdus. Well, the perfection of it will be la'asid lavai. That's the shleimus of it, yeah. That will be the fullness of it. So the Baal Shem Tov came, he wanted to start doing this tikkun, to be able to bring back together the shvira, be able to go back to school. Maybe that's why it says the Baal Shem Tov, before he became revealed as a Rebbe, he used to bring children to school and from school. He was a helper, like today would be a bus driver. He would help a teacher. He would bring the kids to Cheder and back from Cheder. So it could be that he was fixing the matzav of Tinnik HaBoreach Mebeis HaSefer. He was bringing them back and taking them both ways to be able to bring Klal Yisrael back to the place where the unity is seen in every detail of life. It could be Al Pi Remez. Because that was the gilui of Pnimiyus HaTorah of Chassidus, was to reveal this. That's interesting. According to the Rogatchover, the two lines never existed. That's a chiddush gadol ma'od. Chiddush Gadol b'Moed.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.
Bishosh melech HaMashiach bo. Bishosh melech HaMashiach bo. Oy 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 meidagag bein tzamikdash mashmiach Yisrael v'yoy mei. Bishosh melech HaMashiach bo. Bishosh melech HaMashiach bo. Yo 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 meidagag beis hamikdash mashmiach Yisrael v'yoy mei. Bishosh melech HaMashiach bo. Bishosh melech HaMashiach bo. Oy 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 meidal kag beis hamikdash mashmiach Yisrael v'yoy mei. Amen.